Right. Obviously, there are many, many ways to gauge a concept like religiosity. We stuck with a very simple question: is religion an important part of your daily life? We asked that question in 143 countries around the world from 2006 to 2008. And we also asked it in all 50 states over the course of 2008. We actually had about 350,000 interviews from the U.S. for that question. The median proportion of residents across all 143 countries that said yes to this question was 82%, which actually surprised me a little bit that it was that high. But I think part of the reason that it surprised me is that I live in a developed country where religiosity is probably less an integral part of society than it is in poorer countries or countries where, like Muslim countries, where religion is much more tied into political institutions and things like that. The strongest relationship that we can see in the data is between a country's level of religiosity and its average standard of living. So, for example, in regions where the standard of living is relatively high, such as Western Europe and the United States, religiosity tends to be lower on average. In regions where the standard of living is a lot lower, such as Sub-Saharan Africa and some of the countries in Southeast Asia, religiosity tends to be much higher. You also have to keep in mind that there are cultural effects in every given region that sort of interact with this sort of standard of living effect. So it's far from the whole story. You have different historical traditions and different cultures that also determine the values in that culture and the level of religiosity. So these things are all a big jumble of interacting effects. Americans have a high degree of religiosity compared to other developed nations in the world. Across 27 developed nations we looked at, the median level of religiosity was 38%, whereas Americans' average level is 65%. So quite a bit higher. And you know, social scientists have looked at this. There's a term called American exceptionalism, which has been used to describe the way Americans are different from other sort of rich world nations. And one of the reasons, I think, is that we are such a melting pot of different cultures, so that we have Caucasian, English culture to start with, but then we have waves after wave of immigrants bringing in their own religious traditions, their own cultures. So that has tended to raise the level of religiosity in a lot of cases. We do find that, similar to the countries, a state's average per capita GDP is related to its average religiosity level. You see some of the poorest states in the country, which tend to be those in the South, Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina, also tend to be among the most religious.